This is a Sandy Boy Productions podcast. Hey everybody, welcome to Why Is Everyone Yelling with Lindsay Hine. I'm your host Lindsay, and I'm so grateful you're joining us today. Today on this podcast, you are listening to episode 81, and my guest is Bob Kennedy. Bob is a two-time Olympian. He is the president of a run specialty store in Indianapolis called Athletic Annex. It is my favorite run specialty store, so if you are ever in the area, in the Indianapolis area, make sure you go check them out. Bob is also the father of two. He has twins. His daughter is a competitive runner, and his son is a competitive soccer player. Bob ran in the Olympics twice, and he is a very accomplished runner himself. And so in this episode, one of the things we focus on is parenting kids while they are heavily involved in athletics, and the way he goes about it, coming from the background that he has, such a competitive, high-achieving background, and he has some really sound thoughts and advice and ways that he approaches this with his own kids that I thought was just so interesting, and I'm really excited to bring that conversation to all of you. We also catch up on some running store talk and life talk in general. All right, so this podcast is supported by Card My Yard. Friends, if you are looking for a way to celebrate a special person in your life, you got to check out Card My Yard. Have you seen these big cards in people's yards that say happy birthday, happy anniversary, happy graduation? This is such a fun way you can support your friends and family. And I think it's a cool idea if someone doesn't live close to you and you can surprise them with a Card My Yard. My son is about to turn 10, so you better believe he's getting one in our front yard. And what I love about that is I love that neighbors walking by can also wish him a happy birthday. I think that's super special and cool. So you can celebrate any occasion with Card My Yard. And this is a woman-owned business. I actually interviewed the ladies that own the business on this podcast a couple episodes ago. They were super fun. We focused on friendship in that episode, but it was really cool to hear the story, the evolution of the company. And man, they have 500 franchises, so it's likely they are in your city. And one of the coolest things about that is like how many jobs they have created from this business. It is so cool. So if you have an occasion to celebrate, go to cardmyyard.com, use the code CMY5Y. So that's CMY, the number 5, and then the word Y, WHY, CMY5Y, to receive $5 off your next order with Card My Yard. All right, friends, enjoy my conversation with Bob Kennedy. All right. Today on the podcast, we have a returning guest, Bob Kennedy. Welcome back to the show, Bob.
Thank you. It's great to be invited back.
I'm really excited to talk with you. I mean, I moved from Indianapolis, so we have a lot to catch up with on what's going on with Athletic Annex and everything there. So how is it going?
It's been amazing. Certainly 2 years ago to the day almost, it was terrifying as the world came to a halt, and we were having conversations of how much cash we had and if we were going to be able to pay people for how long, and all those that every business owner was having. And I always feel guilty talking about this, but through a lot of real struggles that a lot of people have gone through over the last 2 years, our business thrived, and not just Athletic Annex, but running specialty across the country. And as people stayed home, worked from home, hunkered down, they exercised more. Whether it was running or walking the dog around the neighborhood or just getting out of the house, which meant that even though we were closed for a little bit, we were still selling products either through curbside pickup or online, et cetera, et cetera. So it's been great through a very difficult situation, and we're growing fast even today. So we're looking to grow and expand and add people, and it's fun.
That is so good to hear. A little silver lining there. It's like so much tragedy, but people moving more is never a bad thing.
Absolutely not. And that's ultimately what our business is about, which is to help people do the things they want to do with more energy or support or information or knowledge. And so the more people out there moving, the better we feel about what we're doing.
All right, everybody listening. So Bob was on the show like 6 years ago or 5 years ago.
feels that way. Yeah.
I really think it was 5 years ago.
Has it been that long?
Yeah. You were in the 30s. And so I would normally say, go back and listen to their first episode because that's a way to like get to know the person I'm talking to if they're coming back. But I don't want anybody to go listen to that episode because it's like, hard. I just didn't know what I was doing. My audio wasn't good. But
did we do that in the closet of the original? We did. New it was for you. Yes.
We did it in the closet at Athletic Annex, and I didn't have the right recording stuff. I was just like, it's like when I launched this podcast in 20 must have been 16, 17.
Okay.
You were just on my list of like, okay, if I launch a running podcast, here are 5 influential people I know that would probably say yes to being a guest on the show, right?
Yeah. No, it was fun. And I mean, look where you are now. It's exciting for me to watch what you're doing.
Oh, thank you.
And how successful you've been and how many people you've reached. I mean, my wife, Christy Beth, I mean, just the, I hear about your podcast from people that I didn't know that don't know you, honestly. And so I'm like, oh, you're doing a great job.
Thank you, Bob.
You're welcome.
So, it's funny though, too, Bob introduced at the live show I did with Scott Jurek in Indianapolis, Bob came on stage and introduced Scott. And then Scott came up to me and he goes, is that Bob Kennedy? Like, how do you know Bob Kennedy? It's so funny.
Yeah.
But let's catch up a little bit. So Bob's a 2-time Olympian, friends. If you are new to running and didn't follow running, a decade ago, maybe 2 decades,
multiple decades ago. Yes.
But can you talk to us about getting into the specialty run store space, and then we'll kind of go from there. We're going to talk about parenting athletes and things like that as well. Yeah.
So as you mentioned, running was my job, my life, from the time I was, it wasn't my job when I was 14, but from the time I was 14 to the time I was 34, it was everything that I did. And so when you get to be 30 and you're still running professionally, but also thinking about the fact that this can't last forever, you start thinking, well, what's next? And I have a degree in finance from IU, and that's always interesting to me. Most people in my world who competed professionally, most, not all, back then, they either became coaches, they kind of went to work for one of the footwear brands in sports marketing or related to that, or they went on the agent side of the business. And honestly, at the time, none of those interested me at all. But running was my passion. And so I honestly can't even remember the connection, but just opening a running store just seemed really intriguing. It was I always tell our staff this and our customers if they ask, but I don't shy away from the fact that we are a for-profit business. I think we do good work for people in the community, but we're a for-profit business. So Run Specialty was a for-profit endeavor. that allowed me to still connect with runners. And as I got older, um, I really realized that the most important things that I received from running was just this kind of visceral level of achievement and passion, and all the ups and downs that when you kind of come through that and do something that you find or feel is successful, that's the value. Um, and and what I realized late in my running career was everyone can feel that, whether you're an Olympic champion or you're a brand new runner just starting out trying to figure something out. Like, you can feel that at any level, any speed, any distance. And that's always, still today, is the most intriguing part.
Yeah, and you guys do a really good job with your training programs. I think that, Gareth at Athletic Annex, he's just a really special guy. Like, he was born to do what he's doing, and he has cultivated such a cool community. And I've run some of the training programs there and coached there with you guys, and people feel included when they walk in.
I love to hear you say that, because that is the whole vibe and the goal of our programs, whether it be a program for a half marathon, full marathon, or a group run or whatever. Is, man, we're just having fun. And yeah, everyone has their own goals, and we want to help you get there. But it's not a, oh, you didn't run your 8 miles today, what a failure. It's like, oh, you didn't run your 8 miles a day, shit happens, it's okay, it's okay, let's just move on to the next day. So everyone has a good time.
Yeah, for sure. Well, one of the things I wanted to talk to you about today is, well, first of all, wait, we got to go here. The new store in Fishers.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that a little bit. So since I kind of, you opened it before I moved, I guess, but you guys have a brand new store.
Yeah, it's a little over a year old.
Okay.
So we opened in Fishers, northeast side of Indy, and a newer, it's called Fishers District. Some people call it the Yard. It's a really cool center of retail, residential, great restaurants. And so year one was great. And starting year two, I mean, that store, talk about trying to keep up. That store is growing so fast, which is fun. It creates problems. But in our world, we always say, hey, these are the problems we want to have. And so, it's a great market. And, we'll look to continue to grow our business as the opportunities present itself.
Yeah, I can't really think of a better location. I've been to that Sun King there and had dinner on the patio. And it's like my dad always told me when I bought my first house, location.
So true. So true. The old adage in Run Specialty was, oh, they'll come find you, like you provide a service. But no, I mean, especially in today's world, man, you got to be where people are. And that's what that location is. So.
Yeah. Like, we have 30 minutes until our reservation, until they're going to call our table. Let me walk over to Athletic Annex real quick.
Right. Yeah. And then brands like Lululemon and Viore, which we carry, you can't find those anywhere near that. You have to go to the fashion mall, which is not far, but it's far.
It's more of a to-do too, because you have to go into a mall.
Exactly.
Dude, Viore, that's just life, man. The Viore joggers.
Yeah. It is, I don't know if it's shocking necessarily, but we can't get enough of it in the store ultimately, which is another good problem to have.
Well, one of the things I really wanted to talk to you about is being a parent and watching your kids compete. And you're kind of like coming at this from the lens of a really high achieving athlete. So first, can you just share a little bit about what your kids do for sports and all that?
Yeah. So I have twins, 17-year-old twins. Marcus, who's 2 minutes older than Sophia, and we'll remind her of that at his most advantageous times. Marcus is, even though they're 2 minutes apart in age, he is 6'1", about 165 pounds, very athletic, and Sophia is 5'2". I don't know what she weighs, but it's a lot less than 165 pounds. It's nothing. And and so they're obviously twins, but they're very different physically, and also have personalities. But Marcus is a very high level soccer player. He plays what's now called MLS Next Academy here in Indy Fire Academy. He's a center back. It means he can't play for his high school. It's a year round, almost like kind of professional setup, but not quite professional.
Wow.
So much so that it's like he next year at the age group next year, they practice during the day alongside of the USL Indy 11 team. And, he's got to try to figure out his schedule at school to see if that's possible. And so it's really interesting and fascinating. And I would say nerve wracking for me because I don't know that world. And Sophia she's a runner. She's a distance runner, and she is very talented, not only physically, but also, man, she's got a mindset to her that if her talent allows her, she has a very, very high ceiling. You never know what that means necessarily, but she has a high ceiling. And so she just finished her junior year of cross country, and back in December, and she managed an Achilles injury all season, so she's kind of struggling, and she squeaked out a third place in the state meet, which was a good run for her given everything. And Indiana, by the way, is loaded with young female talent. And then she went on and ended up finishing seventh at the East Bay National Cross Country Championships. And so she really kind of got through that injury. And that's just an example. She currently has the fourth fastest time in the country in the 2 mile. And she's at a high level there. So she's going through in the middle of like college recruiting process, all that stuff right now.
Wow. So is Indiana always loaded up, or is this just like what's happening right now?
I think it's what's happening right now. I think states like Indiana ebb and flow over time. But certainly right now it just seems to be very loaded. And a lot of times there's always one very good runner, but there's 4 or 5 now. So.
How much do you follow that, like around the country?
I do. I follow it more now in the last 2 years than before, which before was never. I didn't follow it at all. And so, so I'm aware of what's going around. So, but she's aware. I mean, with information today, it's just so easy.
Yeah. Okay. We're going to dig into Sophia's running a little bit more, but first I want to ask you about Marcus and doing this like intense soccer league because, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but to me, you come off as a very like kind of laid back, like I'm not going to push my kids into any kind of sport or anything. And it can be nerve wracking, as you mentioned, as a parent, when your kid kind of goes all in on something. So how did you decide we're going to do this? I'm okay with this and I'm going to support you through it.
Yeah. Well, that's a great question. And I think soccer is and the Marcus's soccer situation kind of is a great window into that because I really don't know much. I mean, I understand soccer, but I couldn't tell him, oh, you need to work on this touch or that ball. Yeah, I don't know. Right. And so he's really driving it. But really the answer to your question is he decided. And I ultimately, and their mom also has been great about this, that early on, a lot of opportunities, different sports, different activities, music, all the things, right? And just trying to see if there was something that they were passionate about. But then I never forget the moment, and this was, I say never forget, then I'm going to try to remember the time period. But there was a time early in Marcus's soccer where he was going from like the best club team to the academy coach said, hey, why don't you come practice with us for a little bit? And so that's a window into it. So he went and he saw a different level of play. And then he came home eventually and said, I want to make this team and I want to be good. And so my answer to that was, that's great. What do you think you need to do in order to make the team? Like, what are the action items, to use business terms? And because when I think of and I see even at work or other athletes, I really want to be good. Like everyone wants to be good, right? At something that they're passionate about. well, what are the things you can do daily or 3 days a week or whatever it is? And so I really challenged Marcus, like, what does that mean? What does that mean for practice? What does that mean for like, and he created his own plan. And so he didn't do this right away, but for the last year and a half, maybe even almost 2 years now, he gets up before school on his own.
Wow.
At 6:30, he goes in the garage, and I just start hearing the ball thumping against the box, the jump boxes we have. And he does ball work, short footwork, ball work down there before he goes to school. He lifts on his own after school, and then he goes to practice. So, and that's been him for 2 years with no pushing.
Wow.
Every once in a while, he won't get up. I don't say a word. It just, but it doesn't stop him. He gets up the next morning, And so it's all that to say, I get to try not to ramble about that. Both kids, I wanted to make sure that when they did decide, or if they decided that they wanted to go after something athletically, that it was because that's what they wanted to do. And so never once did I make them go run or make them go to practice or make them get up and work out. Never once. And every time they would say something about, I hope I can be a starter, or I hope I can make that team, or I hope I can be all state or whatever, I'd say, well, what do you think? What do you think you need to do in order to give yourself the best chance of that? And I would just ask questions, and then they would go from there.
I mean, I think that we can close it right there. That's all I needed. I love that answer. Just kidding. I'm keeping you longer than that. But okay. I love that so much because it gives them ownership.
Yeah. And if they want to explore how good they can be, they need that. So I'll give you another example of Sophia. She, after her sophomore year last summer, she ran pretty well, and she ended up going to this what's called the Brooks PR Invitational in Seattle, and she ran a PR 10:14 2 miles. She finished 5th. It was a really high level.
That's so fast.
She's great. Yeah, and she's coming home, and she's like, okay, and she just said, I'm all in now. Like, I want to see how good I can be. And again, similarly, I was like, okay, well, what do you think that means? And we just had this great conversation of what that meant and where that comes from. And I wanted to make sure that it was coming from her heart and her heart only, and not because she thought there were any expectations from me or her mother or her coaches or anybody, right? Or expectations from her friends. And we just had this great conversation about that. If you're going to ultimately go on this journey, and like I said earlier, she has a very high ceiling. We don't know what that means necessarily, but if you're going to find out where that is, it's what's in your heart is the only thing that's going to matter. And just want to make sure she stays true to that going forward.
How do you make sure that like she's keeping her training in check as far as not overdoing it and things like that, so she can be healthy in college and maybe run pro?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the mechanics of that is she uses, she's connected to, you probably heard of Final Surge. And so her coaches and I can see what she's doing. And so I see the volume. I more pay attention to her heart rate at certain, because I can see if maybe she's only running 5 miles for the day, but she's overrunning it, right? She's running too fast or things like that. And but her coach, she has a different cross country coach and track coach in high school, but they're both very much in line with maximizing her ability within a certain workload that just allows her to get to the next level, healthy and happy and energized. And they're both doing a great job at that.
Yeah. I've talked to a lot of coaches, like college coaches, sort of recently. And a lot of the time it's like, okay, say you have this like incoming freshman who has really high potential, but like, I don't want my incoming freshman to go to the well now because I know that in 3 years they could be an NCAA champion. And like, it's unlikely that they're going to do it as a freshman and then keep doing it and doing it. So like, what is the balance of like, we're going to work really hard and maximize our potential, but we got to make sure we're just like pacing this, right?
Yeah, and I think a lot of that is more emotional than physical,
Okay.
in my opinion. And I'm sure whatever college coaches you've talked to are more, they're closer to that. They see it every day. I don't. But I just, from my own experiences, there is a physical point to that. Like if you're a high school athlete running 100 miles a week or 80 miles a week, there's a physical toll. But really, it's also that creates a huge emotional toll. And I retired from competitive running when I was 34 years old, which is obviously a long time. But the reason I retired was not because I didn't think I could compete at the highest level anymore. It's because I wasn't willing to invest emotionally at the level it requires. And it's the same, in my opinion. It's like if you're a high school kid and you're running a lot and you're racing a lot and there's just a ton of pressure and you're the best and everyone expects you to do the best and you go to college and it's the same, like you only have so much of that in you. And so being the best is fine, but it's more about how you get there, in my opinion. And so Sophia, she's definitely under training now, but she's trying to maximize the systems within the small volume. So lactate threshold is really, we can get into technical aspects of that, but I believe in like the large aerobic box, et cetera, et cetera. And that sets you up for success at the next level and maybe the next level after that.
How often are you like, I'm going to log on to Final Surge and see what the week looks like?
Too much. Too much. I've gotten to a point now with both her coaches. I made myself available without trying to insert myself, and now they both at times will ask my input, and that's great.
You like that?
I do like that, but I also want Sophia to have a high school experience.
Yeah.
So going to practice and, being with her teammates and listening to her coach and doing, not dad's over here doing it for you.
It's a very unique experience that she has. I mean, if you look at the list of really high achieving athletes, like how many of them were their parents Olympians too? There's a list, but it's not that extensive.
Yeah. And you don't know. And that's recruiting process now. And a lot of the coaches, like, what a high ceiling in Sophia. And of course they're going to say that, probably say that to all their top recruits. But there's a lot of talent out there that, I don't know what a high ceiling means. If that means you're going to be an NCAA champion, if that means you're going to be an Olympic qualifier or Olympic champion, who knows, right? Who knows? But I think the question always is, if you love it and you think you have a high ceiling, go find out what that might look like. And you can screw that up, and you can screw it up early. And that's where I think that I've been trying to just make sure the path is clear going forward to, when she goes to college, whichever program she picks, and she's looking at all the top programs with great coaches, then she's theirs. I'll be completely out of it. And looking forward to that. But they also have a track record of success.
All right, everybody, I have a sponsor to thank for this episode, and that is Amino Company. I don't know about you, but sometimes I have a hard time getting motivated to work out, specifically strength train. Running is kind of a no-brainer for me, but when I know I need to strength train like twice a week, a little extra pep in my step goes a very long way. As a runner, as I age, the more I realize how important strength training is to me. So I love Amino Company's product Perform. So what I usually will do is I will run like 5 miles. I'll take the Amino Company supplement, and then I will lift weights. And it gives you a more focused workout. It gives you some energy. And even better, it helps improve strength performance, reduces fatigue, and increases muscle protein synthesis. So we can perform and recover faster. That's great, right? If we're going to put all this work in, we want to recover as fast as possible and be good to our bodies. So the cool thing is the Amino Company science is unmatched with over 30 years of experience, over 500 medical research papers published, and over 70,000 times cited by other researchers. So this product specifically that I'm using, Perform, was created by lead scientist and co-founder Dr. Robert Wolf. As a competitive athlete himself, he's run over 62 230 marathons. What? He's still running and fueling his body with this product at the age of 74. So if you are looking for a little nutritional advantage for optimal health in your workouts, check out Amino Company's Perform. Right now, you can get 30% off by using the code SandyBoy when you visit aminoco.com/SandyBoy and use the code SandyBoy at checkout. So for 30% off, you can go to aminoco.com/SandyBoy and use the code SandyBoy. Plus, you get a free gift with every purchase. All right, friends, back to my conversation with Bob Kennedy. How do you manage, like, okay, dad did X, Y, and Z. Her talent is shaking out to be up to where your talent is. And like, how do you manage saying, like, it doesn't matter what I did. This is your story. And there's no expectations here. I imagine that's difficult because it's like when there's a famous actor or like,
Right.
there's like, and they come from a long line in their family. It's hard probably for the kids to not compare themselves to their parents.
Yeah, I think that's why soccer and Marcus is great because, he has no, like I said, he's already a better soccer player than me, which isn't hard, right? So, but by a side note, I do think that, and I've told him this, like if he ever decided to stop playing soccer, I actually think he'd be a really, really good 800-meter runner.
Oh,
but,
really?
Yeah. But
has he ever done a timed 800?
He hasn't. The joke in our family is that he and Sophia want to race each other over 800 meters. And
who do you think would win?
I don't know. I would say I kind of want to say Sophia only because he just doesn't know what
how
that
to like
hurt feels like
how
yet.
to pace that. Yeah, like
right.
Yeah.
Like if he had run 5 or 6 800s, then maybe he would win. But right out of the gate with no experience, she might win just because she knows what that looks like. But anyway, that's maybe one day we'll do that here soon. So back to your question. Like even going to East Bay this December, which by the way was interesting because it's exactly the same as when I ran 30 years ago.
Wow.
Same people, same hotel, same course, same everything. And the meet management, they're reconnecting, seeing each other again, and they would say something like, "Well, do you care if we, I'm like, you can do whatever you want, but I just want to make clear this is about Sophia. This is not about me at all." And so then nothing happens, and that's great, right? And so just kind of being cognizant when I'm talking, because inevitably this is happening and will happen, whether it be media, races, coaches, because I know so many of the college coaches that this is about her and her journey. So college recruiting, here's another example. It's her journey. Like her mom and I are just asking her questions, but she ultimately will decide where she's going with no kind of like, you need to go here, you need to look there. Like if she wants to go to, I don't know, pick a school, that's her choice and her choice alone. So, and we've told coaches that from day one. So I've had coaches reach out to me, "Hey, do you mind if I talk to Sophia?" Like, yeah, of course I don't mind. It's, by the way, only talk to Sophia.
Right.
From here on out, you don't need to talk to me. So that's the way it's been working.
Oh, that's really cool. Do you have, no opinions here, but like, wouldn't it be cool if she ran for IU?
It would be cool. I don't think that'll be on her list, but she's talking to them. She's talking to a lot. But Sophia is like she could run my life right now, ultimately. Like she's that put together for the most part. So she kind of has an idea of what she wants to do.
What are some things in coaches that if you could go back to yourself when you were 18 or even 25, who was coaching you when you were like 25, 26?
Kim McDonald was coaching me,
Okay.
agent/coach. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are qualities that you think you benefited from, think you wish you would have had, things that you hope that Sophia has in a coach when she kind of goes to this next level?
Yeah. I think I watch soccer too, and I think it's the same there. I think the best coach athlete relationship is a full trust partnership. So when you're younger, you lean more on what the coach says because they're the ones with the experience and you're learning. But especially as you move through, you have to have the trust and ability to ask questions. Why are we doing this workout on this day? How does that fit into the overall goal? How should that feel? I didn't feel great the last two. Like some athletes are afraid to tell their coach they didn't feel good, right? But this full on vulnerability, trust, that's the best coaching relationship. And so a good coach has to, have not have an ego that interrupts that. And some coaches do. They it's my way or the highway, or just run harder, run faster, try harder. Like that's if you're coaching high level athletes, they're already trying hard. That's not the problem. It's this reading. And so what I like when I'm looking at coaches today in college, when Sophia's going through this process, is coaches that are number one, aware that different kids on the team at different times need different things, and are accommodate that in some way. Or there are some programs where everyone does the same thing every day, and sometimes that can have success, but also can sometimes leave people behind that probably shouldn't be left behind. So I had those kind of relationships with my coaches where I could be honest, ask questions, have real dialogue. And then as a result, I was learning and educating myself on training, because a good coach will say, I can tell you the process and what to do and how to do it, but I don't know how you're feeling in the moment, in the middle of the workout, where we intended X and Y is happening. And so great athletes have to understand when they're not doing what they should be. Sorry, they're not accomplishing what they should be accomplishing, and then be able to communicate that in the middle of the workout to the coach, right? That is next level stuff that most high schoolers don't have, most college athletes don't necessarily have, but you need to learn that along the way. So that was a super long answer to the question, but that's what I like in coaching situations, is a coach that connects, has trust, honesty, is willing to engage in dialogue with the athlete, willing to teach instead of just tell. And then specifically for female athletes, has an emotional IQ to read and to listen and to react. I like programs that have female coaches on staff, whether head coach or assistant coach. I just think that's important for young female athletes to grow from 18 to 22 or whatever that age group is when you're in college, right? Just an environment where they're safe and feel safe.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I feel like as a female, talk about learning how to advocate for yourself. I think if I picture myself at 18 or 19, and it's not to say there aren't really great male coaches. There are. But I think I'd be a little bit more intimidated to advocate for myself in all those areas you're talking about to a 45-year-old dude compared to a woman who might have kind of like motherly vibes to me. Do you know what I mean?
I do. And a great male coach that's coaching female athletes will recognize that I need options for communication in the program, right? So that's an assistant coach, that's a athletic trainer, that's a whatever. Pick your but if I don't have a system in place where my female athletes have some avenue that they feel comfortable with, then I'm doing my team a disservice. That's my opinion. I actually have no idea. I'd be curious to talk to university administrations about that. Like, are they cognizant about that? Do they think about that, or is that just by chance?
Totally. One of the coaches I interviewed, Lori Hennes, she's the NC State coach, and they won the national title last year.
Yeah.
One of the things that really stood out to me that she really talked about was this happened because our team has fun together. They like being together. They like training together. When we're not at practice, they want to be together. And that synergy is what made this happen.
I absolutely. And Lori is a great coach. And actually, Lori and I are the same age. We were winning state high school championships at the same time in Ohio.
Oh, she's from Ohio.
Yeah, she went to high school in Ohio.
Oh, that's cool.
And that's one of the schools Sophia will be visiting. And she's done a great job at North Carolina State. And you can tell that their team is exactly what you just described. And I think those are things that Sophia and other recruits, I can't speak for other recruits, I think Sophia's looking for is a coach that obviously knows what they're doing, that's having success, but is creating an environment where the kids are having fun and bonding and having a team experience.
If Sophia goes to NC State, we live in Raleigh now, so just she can come over.
Do?
Yeah, she can.
Oh, I knew that.
Yeah, she can come over for Sunday dinner. Like, when you go away to college and you're far away from mom and dad, it's nice to have someone in the city that's like a little bit older that if you really needed someone, you could go to. So
totally.
My door is open to Sophia if she lands there.
I'll let her know. That's great.
So I guess, what do you think is most important longevity wise with our young athletes, and maybe people listening, like their kids aren't going to run, at a Big Ten school or whatever, but we want them to have a lifelong love for movement and activity?
Yeah. And I think that's a great question. I think historically what happens with high school runners, college runners, is they love it while they're competing. When they graduate from college, get their first job, they go away from it, right? And they're making some money now. They're maybe they're going to start a family soon. But then in their 30s, they come right back to it.
Yeah.
And not everybody. And so we talk about that in the store as far as products. And so the kind of traditional running products like Brooks and Saucony and some of the other kind of quote unquote traditional running brands. Like when you get into when you're running in high school now, you see a lot of Brooks shoes on high school runners at cross country meets, track meets. But they're not buying them in their 20s. They're back to buying Nike and Adidas to work out in and go to the gym. But then when they hit their 30s, they're coming back in and buying those traditional running brands. And the brands will tell you that. Like they know, like Brooks knows, for example, that 20 somethings that's not who's buying their shoes mostly. But they are on high school feet. So anyway.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So the question is, do you try to change that, or is that that's cool the way it is and you just roll with it? But, longevity, movement for life, I think it goes back to talking about my kids and their doing what they're doing because it's coming from their heart. Mm. And so if you can create a situation in high school where the ability to run and work is energizing and not a chore, then you'll create this passion for movement going forward. And so how do you do that? Man, I don't know if I know the answer to that. I know there are some coaches that really think I want to have fun, and it should be fun, but fun doesn't necessarily mean you don't work hard. And I think sometimes those get mixed. And so when you're saying we're going to have fun and that translates into easier efforts or practices because you don't want to scare kids away, well, then they're not learning they're not learning that that work can also be fun because the challenge and the result is fun. And I was talking to Sophia's track coach the other day, just generally, and I'm not saying he's like this, but he was talking about having fun, and I'm like, yeah, I totally get that. I mean, I had a blast when I used to go to practice and just had friends. But I said Sophia's interesting because when it's a day where there's a very hard workout, she loves that. That's fun for her. I don't think that's normal because I think a lot of kids are like, oh no, it's a really hard workout today. And
Like they're
but
nervous.
yeah, but she's like giddy about it, which is maybe a little weird, but that's
That's
also one of the reasons she's
awesome.
good. Yeah. And so there's different, like, fun doesn't have to be, games and parties but it can be hey, we work hard and then we just have fun doing it, right? We're joking around or whatever, as opposed to yelling at kids like run faster or you didn't hit your time or those kind of things.
Yeah, so believe it or not, now Marshall is 9, which is
Oh wow.
crazy because when you
Yes.
and I first started working together, when I worked for Athletic Annex, he was 2. I was
That's
pregnant with
crazy.
Lewis. I know. I was going
Yeah.
to say your kids were probably closer to his age now.
Yeah, goes fast.
Yeah, I know. I mourn it every day. um,
Yeah.
but like I'm kind of so he's playing soccer and he's pretty athletic. Like if you look at him, like he's a pretty athletic kid, but we haven't done a lot of sports. We're kind of like minimal with our stuff. But I'm kind of to the point where, okay, you're 9, you love this. Um, you need to do other sports still too. But yeah, there's that fine line of like, we're still just having a lot of fun, but now it's time to instill also like hard work is an important part of life.
Right. Yeah, and those ages are tricky. So I think of that. This is my opinion, and I'm not an expert in this, but at those ages, I thought the biggest thing was to instill commitment. And what I mean by that is you signed up for soccer, which means when you have practice, you go to practice. That's it. I don't care how good you are or not good you are at practice, but you go to practice. Like you
Mm-hmm.
committed to this, right? It's not, I don't feel like it. I'm dying. You go to practice. Okay. If you're sick, yeah, obviously we're not going to be dumb about it. But so that translated into, and I saw other kids and other parents and being critical. It's just different than the way I would do it, who would just allow their kids to do whatever they want. But I was a big, like, again, I'll just repeat myself. Like, and we would have conversations about this. So this is soccer. It's 2 days a week. It's games on Saturday. Like if you sign up for this, you're going to go to all of it. Okay. And that's what we committed to. And so that just to me creates a pattern, a habit of commitment and showing up. And then if you still like it when you're 11, 12, 13, and you're good at it and you want to see how good you can be, then we can kind of go to the next level, whether that looking for, a better quality club to go and train and play with, or sometimes even private lessons or workouts. We did a little bit of that. But I wouldn't do that personally at 9.
I love that answer. I was curious. I was going to ask you when you kind of let them specialize a little bit more and go all in with the one.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
hard.
it is. And I think unfortunately, if you're pretty good at a sport young, you're forced to choose earlier than we probably should be choosing.
Yeah.
Like every expert says the multi-sport is better, and yet we're forced to choose the way the club systems work and the schedules and et cetera. And so Sophia was easier because she played soccer for a while and she was hilarious. And I'm not saying anything she wouldn't laugh about herself. She loved the uniforms more than she loved playing game.
I love a soccer
And
uniform too. I get it.
yeah, and I used to call her my little electron because she would just be spinning around the ball but never get in the middle of the ball the whole time. And so it was easy for her when she's like, yeah, nah, I'm done with that. And move on. Marcus, similarly, like he wanted to play basketball and baseball, but then you get good enough path with soccer and you get into that academy, it really there's no time for anything else.
Right.
And so you're forced, but then if you get out of that funnel, then you can't get back in.
Yeah, that's tough too. I know, because we got to sign up for some more sports. Just it's pure laziness out of me that we don't do more. I've been very committed.
Well, you have enough kids where you got to figure. That's a whole matrix,
right?
Yeah.
Well, and I've always said, like, I am not taxing everybody around for the sake of doing things. Like my 4-year-old does not need to try baseball, t-ball, all the things, because guess what? We can do that in the front yard.
Sure, yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
But that being said, it's like, I don't know, maybe basketball won't be a big part of my kid's life, but like, I'm from freaking Indiana. I want you to know how to play basketball, right?
Yeah. No kidding. I mean, I think that's a big part of it too, is at least have the experience so you can talk about it or understand a little bit about a conversation in an office or a school or workplace. And those are important parts of our culture, I think, whether it's basketball or baseball or playing an instrument in grade school, things like that, I think are super, super important. And now you get, like, my kids both drive, they're spoiled, they have their own cars. And now the opposite of that is I'm like, hey, dinner Friday night at 6.
Come home. And then you can go out with your friends after that. But if I don't do that, I mean, I'll never see them. Man.
Yeah. Not to scare you, and then Melina, their mom, and I had talked recently just about how fat, like, they're going to be in college in a year and a half. Done.
I know.
Not that they're done out of your lives, but very different.
Well, you're doing it at the same time too.
Right, that's
like
correct.
You're becoming empty nester to get, like, instead of one kid going and then another kid going 2 years later. So you're kind of like all at once.
Right. Exactly. So that's scary.
Yeah. Well, and just one more thought on the basketball thing, or like tennis or whatever you want to say, is it's like, talk about instilling a love for movement with your kids. Well, they're going to enjoy doing it more if they know how to do it. Right. So like if someone's playing a pickup game or, whatever's happening, they're just going to be more apt to joining in if they know. So that's kind of my motivation there as well.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody. Okay, I have a new sponsor that I'm so excited about. I will be using their services this coming Sunday. Cannot wait. It is Shoot Photography. Have you heard of them? So Shoot is a female-run small business, and they offer 30-minute outdoor photo sessions that are free to book. They take place in photo-worthy hotspots in local parks. And then from your session, you can choose which photos you want to purchase. You get a digital gallery of 40 plus high-res, lightly edited photos within 3 to 5 business days. There's no sitting fee, so this is a no-risk service. You only pay for the photos you love. Photos start at $30, and when you buy more, you get a discount. So the more you buy, the more you save. Price is at $15 per photo for 10 or more photos, or just $2.95 for the full gallery. I mean, this is a really, really great deal. And it's low stress because you show up with your family, or if you want to do like branding pictures, whatever pictures you need taken, you show up for your 30-minute session at a local hotspot. Like here in Raleigh, there's like 6 different options. We're going to go down to Pullen Park and get photos taken for our family this coming Sunday. And then you just buy the pictures you love, or if you love so many, buy the full gallery and you have them all. They have a strong multi-step vetting process for their photographers. They only hire the top 2 to 5% of applicants. And I'm telling you what, getting a little mini session of family photos can be really stressful, and this is a low stress way to do it. I am so excited to check it out. I'm having my pictures taken with my family on this Sunday, and then I'll share the photos on Instagram so you guys can see what they look like. And so I'm so excited that Shoot Photography is offering listeners of the show a discount on your pictures. So use the code SandyBoy. That's the name of our podcast network, Sandy Boy Productions. Use the code SandyBoy to receive 15% off 5 or more photos from your session. That's SandyBoy to receive 15% off 5 or more photos for your session. And that's at shoot.com, SHOOTT.com. And you should know they are all over the country. So you just go to their website and search your city. They have locations in nearly every single state and major city. So go check it out. Shoot.com, SHOOTT.com. Use the code SandyBoy for 15% off 5 or more of your photos. All right, friends, back to the show. What are you like at meets and soccer games? And is it different for the meets and the soccer games?
Wow. You're going to expose me now.
Do you have to stand far back to control yourself?
Yes. So soccer is easy for me. And I appreciate this with his club for years. I mean, they really communicate with parents about, we're coaching, especially at the academy level, like we're coaching the team, like don't coach them from the sideline. Well,
yeah. All, don't say like, go get the ball or whatever.
Yeah. Especially when you don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
Because maybe they're not supposed to go get the ball. Right.
Parents now need to know that too, by the way. Like parents of 9-year-olds should know that as well.
That's true. Yeah. And I've seen, the parent-to-parent confrontation, which is always ugly. And so I tend to stand at soccer games by myself.
Okay.
But I like to watch. I really watch the game. Like I'm a very curious person. And so I'm trying to learn. Like I listen to Marcus talk about their formations and their attacking mindset and and so I'm watching. And so even when my dad is chatting to me on the sideline about IU basketball, I'm like, I don't want to talk about this right now. I want to watch the game, So I tend to, and my parents specifically already know this. So we'll chat and then when the game starts, I'm like, all right, I'll see you at halftime. And I walk down the field by myself. And they're like, there goes our crazy son. Track and cross country. I also tend to do similar where I'll interact with parents and friends, but then I tend to go on my own. But I also, and this is not, people just don't know what they don't know. Like oftentimes inexperienced parents at cross country meets stand at the finish line, and there's nothing to see at the finish line, right? And so I tend to be in places where I know, it's probably important that important's not the right word. That I know those are dead spaces quite often. I've finally realized that me being where I think I should be and yelling a specific thing is irrelevant to how Sophia races, because she's beyond that now. So now I can enjoy it a little bit more.
I'm curious though, like if she's coming by and looking like she's putting the hurt on, what's like the one thing you're known to say?
So I'm actually, that's a great question because I believe in actionable items. So when you yell at a runner, pick it up or catch them or, what's the word? Or like towards the end, kick now. Like those are things that they obviously know they should, like, it's not rocket science, right? So but coaches need to have this laid out with their athletes in advance too. But like a lot of times it's form. So it might be stay up, stay tall. It might be head up. I think when you see athletes kind of in a tough spot, their eyes tend to drift down to their feet. And so eyes up, eyes forward, just things that make small changes in your mentality. And distance running is hard enough as it is, but there are always moments where you drift and you try to minimize those. And so being able to self-evaluate and catch yourself is huge. But if it's a coach or a parent being able to say, eyes up, stay tall, those can be helpful if the athlete knows what they mean. ultimately.
Ooh, I love that. Eyes up. I don't have that in my like catalog. And
Yeah.
I always try to think of some words to calm myself down if I'm trying to run a marathon fast. And I usually think of words like fluid, like
Hmm.
just like, strong, capable,
Yeah.
but eyes up. It's kind of like, you shake out your arms, like loosen up and then eyes up. I love that.
Yeah. But if you think about when your eyes go down, your head goes down, your
Hmm.
shoulders slump, your posture goes over, which means your hips rotate. Like it's a whole chain. So now you're shortening your stride, et cetera, et cetera. So you're not fluid, using your term, which is great. And so, what's the one thing that possibly can change that chain? And it starts with your head. And so looking forward, so eyes up and looking forward down the road, down the course, down the track is the first part of that chain working most efficiently.
Okay, friends, add that to your catalog. Um, I just, I love talking about kids and athletics, and I've been meaning to do this with you, like reaching out to you for a long time about this because you just have such a fascinating perspective on it. So this conversation has given me life.
Oh, good. Well, thank you. Well, I've learned a lot about myself through my kids. There are things that I haven't thought about or I've had to think more deeply about because now it's not about me, it's about them. So how can I help them without doing it for them? So it's been a fascinating time for me as well.
Gosh, isn't that like you learn that as a parent so early too? It's like, oh, if I just tie their shoes for them, if I just do this for them,
Right.
it's faster, better, all the things. But like you said, when you were talking about wanting to get to the next level, asking them questions. Not what do I need to do? What do you need to do?
Yeah, absolutely. It's everything. I mean, just said to Marcus yesterday because I looked in this room and there's clothes like all over the floor. I said, I'm
Ugh.
not sure if you know which ones are clean and dirty, but you might want to think about doing laundry soon. I'm not doing it for him. He knows how to do it, right? And so, the next day he gathers the stuff up, puts it in the washing machine. But, one day he's going to go to college and it won't be a shock to him. Now he might wake up one day with no clean clothes, but he'll be like, oh shoot, I screwed that up. Yeah, he'll go from there.
Okay, I have a co-parenting question on that.
Okay.
Which by the way, I just like admire Christy Beth so much with her co-parenting and just how she
Yeah.
talks about that relationship because what her kids are seeing, and I'm sure your kids as well, it's beautiful. It really is. If you guys aren't
Yeah.
following
Thank you.
Christy Beth on social media, follow
Yeah.
Christy Beth. That's Bob's wife.
Yeah. She's great. Yeah. I mean, Melina, Marcus and Sophia's mom, Melina, we, we are great friends.
I
Uh,
love
we
that.
talk, we talk every day. A lot of it is about the kids, but not all of it. And we're on the same page. And so things like you talk about, or I just mentioned the laundry in the room, like I'll talk to her about that and see
Okay.
what's going on at her house. And she's like, yeah, same thing's going on. And I did his laundry yesterday, but I shouldn't have, and or whatever, make whatever the line is. But those are things trying not to have a completely different experience from house to house. There will be differences, and that's fine, but trying to have at least a similar message. In fact, um, Melina was telling me the other day about she had her family in town over President's Day weekend and cousins, and they were doing some TikTok with an older cousin, and they were talking about because a few of them are from divorced parents and living in that situation. And one of the younger cousins was like, yeah, I can. It's actually kind of good sometimes because if my mom says no, I can ask my dad. And then apparently Marcus and Sophia got on. They're like, yeah, doesn't work because my parents get along too well. So you can't pull the wool over our eyes. But no, I think it's that can be very difficult. I know divorce is emotional. I don't recommend it if you don't have to go through it. But if you are going through that, or if you do go through that, I really encourage you to put your kids first. and try to. It takes a lot of humble pie to kind of put your own emotions aside and remember the good things about your co-parent, your ex, and then be parents together, because your kids are the only ones that suffer ultimately.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't imagine how difficult that would be, because even when you're married and you live under the same roof, you have disagreements over like when they should be able to do this, when they should be able to do that.
Sure.
And so to do that not in the same home, and you want to come to agreements, I'm sure, on like when they can get on social media, like the
Right.
big ticket items, right? That are like
Yes.
could be life changing.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And we do holidays together. Melina and I were on the recruiting trips together, and um, it's important. But yeah, you have to be on the same page with all that stuff. And to pass, kids. It's not the kids' fault they're in a different house, this week or next week or this weekend or that next weekend. Their emotional state of mind doesn't change. Like, they carry it. And so whether it's about school or athletics or social, kid, friends, girlfriends, boyfriends, whatever it is. So it's up to Melina and I, in our case, or the co-parents, to transfer that information. You know, it's not their response. It's not the kid's responsibility to catch mom up on the issues dad and I talked. It's like, when it's and they leave my house and go to Melina's, I call her and be like, hey, Marcus was talking about this and he's kind of struggling here, and this is what we talked about. So if you want to catch up with him, and that is huge. It's huge,
That's
in my opinion.
huge. We don't even have time to get into it, but man, you're dealing with boyfriend girlfriend stuff, Bob. Jeez, oh Pete, I can't imagine.
Yeah, yeah. It's not too bad right now, so that's good.
Yeah. Okay, let's do a couple fun, just like nerdy runner stuff before we
Yeah.
wrap up here. What is the most exciting or surprising fun thing in running, whether it be an athlete, performance, or business or whatever that you've seen in the last year?
Oh, that's a good question. I think, actually, just having this conversation with someone, with Gareth this morning, after Grant Fisher's American record,
Oh yeah.
um, over the weekend at 10,000 meters. And I always laugh when I say, back in my day, you know, we, and I don't know if it's the pandemic that caused this, or if it's just an evolution, but times like that, performances like, were never run except in big meets like
Mm.
Zurich or Stockholm or Brussels in Europe, and now it seems like guys are and women are showing up at, I'll call them practice meets, because the pandemic, like, let's just put a meet together, and they're running like American records, right, or world leading times, and they're doing it during the pandemic in front of no fans, so it's not like 30,000 or 40,000 people screaming, which has its own energy. They're just doing it, and I'm like so impressed with that. That they can, I would just say, be so methodical about it, and just, I'm just going to go get this job done. I don't need the pomp and circumstance. I don't need the 40,000 people. I just need a track. And so, to me, over the last year plus, I thought running would take a step backwards at the highest level because there weren't those competitions. It didn't. It went forward. And I think that is a testament to these athletes' perseverance and resiliency. And I don't know. I've just been very impressed with that. I think I would have failed at that.
How close do you follow? Like, are you watching New York City Marathon, things like that?
I would say I don't follow it as close as most people probably assume I follow it, but I will see, like, I saw Grant Fisher's result on Instagram on Monday.
Okay. So you weren't
Yeah.
like over the weekend live streaming the race.
No, no, no. Not that I wouldn't, but I just don't.
But okay, curious about this. So we mentioned Christy Beth, that's Bob's new wife. She is a big runner too. She owns several Fleet Feets in Nashville. She's badass business owner, so cool. And she's super ingrained in the running culture too. Is that like a topic of conversation for you guys? Or if someone does something really cool, like, when Kira D'Amato broke the American record in the marathon, is she texting you or is she texting her
Right.
girlfriends? What does that look like?
That's probably more her girlfriends. Yeah. It's not that we don't talk about it or we're not interested in it, but I think that's more me in the sense that when I retired, I really went away from it, and I'm only paying more attention to it now because of Sophia than I probably would otherwise. And again, it's not because I'm not interested. It's I don't know. It's just not something. It's not something top of mind for me. That doesn't make sense. I'm not explaining myself
I
very
get what
well
you're
on this
saying.
one.
It'll be interesting to see how that evolves with you. Like how much more, especially if not to like talk out of turn here, but like especially if Sophia goes pro eventually, like it'll be
Right.
interesting to see how closely you really start following things.
Yeah. Well, I imagine if that happens, I'll follow it very intricately at that point. But it's changed, and that world is. I think I mentioned this earlier. It for me anyway. I can't speak for other athletes. It was such an emotional, not in the sense of an emotional roller coaster daily, but I was all in singularly, and it has an emotional cost. It has other costs socially, and in my opinion, it was required to perform at that level because distractions, even though they might be marginal, they become large if you allow them. And so it's just an interesting world. And there's sometimes that, and Melina knows that world just through being married to me during that time. And we've had some great discussions post divorce about that. Like, what would we have done differently, in that world as a couple versus what it was? And what does that mean for Sophia if she gets to that level? Like, how can we help her set herself up for success if she gets to that level, but in a better, like, emotional way than maybe, I went through it.
Yeah, and I think that social media plays a big role in this now too, right? Like a lot of brands, I mean, unless you're breaking world records, right? Whatever. Like if you're doing those kinds of things, they're like, okay, your results speak for themselves. But a lot of brands
Sure.
want you to play a
Yes.
role there, and that can be exhausting because you've got people coming in on your inbox distracting you.
Yeah. Yeah. I would have failed miserably. I mean,
Oh, you totally would have.
if you've looked at my
I did.
Instagram, you see I haven't posted for I don't know how long now, but
You haven't
since
posted
Black
for two
Tuesday, I
years.
think. Yeah, and that's by a little by design, mainly because I don't know. I'm not. It's not that I'm private. I am private, but I feel like what I have to say is boring quite
Oh
often.
no.
Um, and I'm not a shout from the rooftop type of person. I've had great discussions about. I shouldn't say that. I'm not a good self promoter, and it's not always about self promotion. I totally understand that, but it's really hard for me to wrap my head around. So I have this like parallel thought process on social media that I can't get out of my own way on. Which is probably a whole nother podcast that it should involve like a psychologist or something to help me out. But it's interesting, and I like envy. I envy what you're doing. I look at other people who have done some great things. I'm like, but it could be a great way to like I call it help people. Maybe it does help people, but just disseminate information that people might find interesting or valuable. But I just can't get myself to do it.
What listeners don't know is that like 4 years ago, we tried to launch a
Right.
podcast with Bob. I didn't know what
Right.
the heck I was doing. I was in over my head, and we recorded like 4 episodes.
That's right. Yeah. And I was like, I don't know. I
I
don't know
couldn't
what I'm
I couldn't
doing.
get
I
my
need you
head
to
around
help.
it. Now I could
Yeah.
do it. So if
Yeah.
you and Christy Beth want to join my network, come on in. But
Yeah.
I wasn't ready for that. I was like, well, let's just do it. And yeah, but like I think a platform like this for you would be good because it's different than like trying to post on Instagram. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right, seeds out there
No, it's
again.
fascinating. Yeah, it's fascinating. I think Christy Beth would have to agree to like manage it and just tell me where to be and what to say. Not
Yeah,
what to say,
and
but
she's got the best personality for it. Okay,
sure.
last couple questions. I'm
Yeah.
throwing this at you randomly, but I feel like it would be a fun to hear you answer. You
Okay.
have to pick 4 people to run on a 5,000-meter team. You each run 5,000 meters, and it can be people from any era, your era now, and
Ooh.
who's going to be, it's like a 4 by 5,000 meter relay. Who are going to be your best bets for that team?
Wow, there's so many ways to think about that. Like, because you to translate from an era to, I always say you can't compare eras,
Totally, because of
times from
shoes and
eras.
whatnot. Yeah.
Yeah, tracks and training. But if I was just going to go on grit and toughness, and I don't know the athletes of today as well, only from what I watch, but I definitely think Prefontaine would have to be on that team. Um, I think, and I don't even think I would make that team.
I feel like you have to put yourself on the team, though.
Okay,
And I picked
I have to be
5,000 because, like,
the
that's,
captain.
yeah.
um, I think I would pick. These are just guys from my era, but like a Haile Gebrselassie, always on, tough as nails to go with his talent, and then a Daniel Komen,
Okay.
who was probably the most talented distance runner that I've ever seen and or worked or trained with. His 720 over 3,000 meters is I mean, still hasn't been touched after all these years, and he was a guy who, I wouldn't say he didn't know what he's doing, but he just ran with pure, like, unabated, just go, just like, there's no such thing as too fast, right? We all like gotta go at the right pace, and I gotta make sure I hit the split. He's like, whatever, I'm just gonna go run fast, you know. And I love that. So I think boy, there's so many others. I mean, you gotta look at a Grant Fisher, and there's just guys from after my career that are super talented, super tough, gritty. But if you're going to make me pick 4, I'm going to go with people I know, except for Pre. I didn't know Pre.
Did you overlap with Dathan Ritzenhein at all?
A little bit. Yeah, he's younger than I am. And I'm trying to think how much younger. A little bit professionally, but not much. Yeah.
He's just like, his team is killing it.
Yeah. Yeah, he's doing a great job.
It's fun to watch that. All right, Bob, what's the best, most recent book you've read?
Best, most recent book. Oh, man. Trying to think of, I don't know if it's recent. I haven't finished it, but I was reading. Oh my gosh! And you're exposing my weaknesses of names, and like I'm terrible at movie titles and things like that. But it's Talking to Strangers. Everything that he does, whether it be revisionist history or Talking to Strangers or other works, he just has a great way, of my opinion, of thinking about things from so many different perspectives and really diving deep. And I just love that because I like to challenge myself quite often, daily at work or with my kids, of instead of diving right into my first instinct, to really thinking through, well, what else could be happening here, or why, or those types of things. And so reading his material, listening to his podcasts, I love. I have, and this is an old book that I'm rereading right now. It's called Conscious Capitalism, and it's written by the CEO, well, the former CEO and the creator of Whole Foods.
Okay.
And like I said, this book is it's pretty old. But Conscious Capitalism, it just talks about how the traditional view on business and capitalism is, leave firebomb things for profit, and that how that's not necessary. That really you can create a situation in business where everybody wins, shareholders, employees, customers, vendor partners, community. And I've read it once and I'm rereading it now because I just love that. And I love that when I think about Athletic Annex, about how we operate and how we recruit and how we compensate and how we provide the opportunities we can for staff and how we treat our customers and how we provide value for our customers and our vendor partners and what we're doing in our community. And I do believe that there are trade-offs, but there don't have to be big trade-offs. All those people can win. All those entities can win. So that's a book that I really like.
I love that. I think every business owner should read that book.
Yeah, so do I. Get narrow. So, but that's part of growing. Like we try to open another location because we want to give opportunity to people.
Yeah, like you're providing more jobs.
Yeah. We have good people that we need to provide a different role than they're in now, and we can't do that with 2 stores. We need 3 stores to do it.
Oh, that's so good. What's the best, most recent concert you've been to? I mean, pandemic aside, but I know you guys like music.
Yeah, we went to, so I really like Camp. I saw them in Nashville in the Basement East, which is a really cool venue. It's kind of like the Bluebird in Bloomington.
Okay.
That type of place. And we also saw the Avett Brothers recently at not at Bonnaroo, but at the farm in Bonnaroo. That would be the 2 most recent concerts we've been to.
Did you ever see a concert at Bluebird? Like, when you see the concert and it's before the people blew up, like I think I went to Mumford and Sons there before they were big.
I was there too, Mumford and Sons.
Is that the one? You went to that?
$10 general admission ticket right before they did the Grammys, I think, that year. Yeah.
I'm trying to think of other bands I saw there, and then like Dierks Bentley, which that's different, that's country, but I don't think he would play there again.
No, probably not. I can't think of others I went to. Like back in my day, there was REM came through, and when they were doing the college tour scene before they got big, that was fun. That kind of stuff.
So fun. All right, Bob. Well, what is your last message to leave with our audience today?
Well, first, thank you for the opportunity to talk and listen. And I guess I don't know. I love what I do every day, and running has been a passion of mine since I was 14. And I've gone through so many iterations of that myself, from, world-class professional athlete to what I would say non-runner for a couple of years when I retired, and now to a run walker. We didn't talk about that, but I had meniscus surgery a couple of years ago. And even though my meniscus is totally fine now, I still run walk. Because it's like Pavlovian tablet. Like I get to walk here soon, and I can't stop doing it.
What's your interval? Like, what do you normally do?
Well, I mess around with it. It's right now. It's kind of like a 6 minute, 1 minute, 6 minute run, 1 minute walk.
Okay.
So that's fun. But anyway, all that to say is, it is a journey. I was fortunate enough when I was 16 to listen to Billy Mills speak, and he said a lot of things. But the only thing I remember, he said, it's all about the journey. It's not about the medals or the records or the victories. It's about the journey. And I've been doing it a long time, and it 100% is about the journey. And so the ability to look back on your life, your running life, and be proud of the ups and the downs and how you move through is the most rewarding part of the whole journey. And that's kind of, when we talk about kids, that's what I'm hoping my kids get out of their athletic career, but could be anything, right? And so that's the journey for them, we hope, as parents, ultimately.
Bob, thank you so much.
Thank you. It's good to see you again and talk to you.
All right, friends, thanks so much for being here today. Thank you, Bob, for sharing your story. You all can learn more about Athletic Annex. That's the business Bob is the president of when you go to athleticannex.com. You can check out this podcast and the other podcasts in our network at sandyboyproductions.com. This was a crossover episode on I'll Have Another as well, because that is my podcast for runners, and I felt like it was relevant to both shows. Follow us on Instagram, Why Is Everyone Yelling? Follow me personally on Instagram. I'm Lindsay Hine 626, and you can join our Facebook community as well. I would love to personally connect with you. Thank you for being here. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you next week on Why Is Everyone Yelling?